Yeah.
That those boxes could be rejuvenation chambers.
They could be, absolutely. I'm kind of under the same opinion. They could have been rejuvenation chambers. They also, some of them could have been used as storage, for seeds and stuff, and maybe even the mana or the monoatomic elements during the cataclysm.
Yeah.
They had to have, in which case, even there, they had to have known it was coming. And so they had to have built all that to preserve it. I mean, what we do know is when the Egyptians found that place, and I do believe the Egyptians found it, they were so blown away by it. They tried to preserve it. They offered bull sacrifices, which is what led to the ridiculous idea that they were sarcophaguses for bulls.
Yeah, which they're clean on the inside. So totally clean and pristine on the inside.
That's right. And they were, even the Egyptians, they were so, this shows the opposites of, on the one hand, you have this amazing technology that we can't do today.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, the Egyptians were eating the dirt from inside the area because they thought it might have magical qualities, from whoever built it.
Yeah,
so they definitely attributed it to the gods, and we can argue who are the gods, and of which Thoth was one of them.
Very clear in the
and
writing.
So, were they the survivors of the Atlantean tradition that were bringing that technology to the region and the knowledge to the region? Were they star beings, that had set up a colony here on Earth, which we now call Atlantis? I mean, all those things can be argued.
Yeah.
And you can make a case for either or both, or maybe they're one and the same.
Yeah.
But definitely the Egyptians were trying to preserve this thing that these superior beings had left for them, the legacy.
Absolutely, yeah.
So.
They call them the Natiru, or the netters, that at the time of Zep Tepi turned mud into a kingdom.
Yeah, that's right.
So turning the mud into a kingdom, to me, references some type of a catastrophe that had happened.
Yeah.
To rebuild that civilization. And then Thoth opens up in the Emerald Tablet saying that he's here to rebuild or bring Kemet back up to a high level of civilization, meaning it had once before been a high level of civilization.
Absolutely. Well, and you find the same thing with the Nahuatl cultures in the Americas. I mean, they referred to them as the Itzel, which just meant like water wizard or water sorcerer. Like they were able to take water, and convert it into something else, I mean, and of course, when we consider the flood that was associated with that cataclysm, it would be, out of those waters, they were able to create something,
Right.
So
yeah, just incredible.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the Knights Templar knowledge.
Yeah.
The Templars were known to have searched for the lost wisdom of Jerusalem and other ancient artifacts around the world.
Yeah.
Can you touch on that and how it may affect this?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, the Templar Order was originally set up during the Crusades. There was a fear that there were certain families in France and other places that were preserving Hermetic texts and Gnostic texts that were associated with Thoth or Hermes, and one was the Albigensians in southern France, but there were others. There was the Bogomils in Bulgaria, and there was a Pauline Gnostics that were in the Armenia area, and others. But there was a fear that when the Crusaders went into Jerusalem, that they were going to find texts and technology that they wouldn't understand, and it would become destroyed, or it would be turned over to the Roman Church and it would disappear. Right, because it was contrary to the narrative that the Roman Church was pushing at the time. So So what they did is they created the Knights Templar to go down and find this. And not only to find these artifacts in Jerusalem, but anywhere else, to try to bring the lost pieces of Atlantis back together again. And so the Templar Order, originally they went to Jerusalem. They were digging under the Temple Mount. They found a number of artifacts, but it also then led them to Egypt, in particular the area between Giza and Saqqara, which was known as Rostau in the Egyptian tradition. Well, if you transliterate Rostau in Egyptian into Latin, Ros means rose, and Tau means cross. So the Templars adopted a rose cross as a symbol related to that knowledge from that area. They set up their when they went into Egypt, they set up their main commandery at Philae, at the Temple of Isis, which is why to this day, if you go there, you find Templar crosses carved all around
everywhere.
They were working with the Coptic Church that was preserving some of the Egyptian elements in the region. They also did archaeological work at the Temple of Hathor, and they set up a preceptory, which you can still find the remnants of, right next to the Temple of Hathor at Dendera. They were doing research there. They also went to Esna, to Edfu, to Elephantine Island, and which is why even to this day you'll still find Templar monuments at all of these locations. You'll find a monument with a Templar cross on it. That was from the 1200s. So they were researching all of these areas. They were trying to find wisdom, and they were trying to find these arks, like the Ark of the Covenant, which were depicted on all the temple walls. In fact, the first ark they found was at the temple of Seti I at Abydos, where you also find the Osirian. There's actually a room. It's closed to the public, but there is a chamber at that temple which depicts an ark and an ark under transportation on a boat. And you'll find Templar graffiti from the 1200s of 3 red Templar crosses surrounding one of the arks depicted on the wall, because that's where they found one of them. And the belief was that all of these arks, which were stored in the sanctum sanctorum of all these temples, were like power generators. They were capacitors. And when you put the mana in them, or the monoatomic gold, which was superconductive, it just built up a tremendous amount of static electricity, which was just then kind of broadcasted around the temple. And if you go to a number of these places, you also find these stones around the perimeters of the temples that have these what were known as butterfly clamps in them.
Yes, you can see them.
And you see them where it's kind of 2 stones go together, and in between them is this kind of almost looks like a butterfly. And there used to be metal in those. And they would act almost like a zipper that would go all around the temple. So when the ark was generating the static electricity, that perimeter would hold it all, and that whole temple would be filled with this static electricity. So if you went to touch like a god statue or something, you'd get shocked, and people would think that was magic. But this energy, it was believed that this energy would be transmitted, through the obelisks and everything else, to create not just within Egypt but around the world. Along these electromagnetic lines of force that we refer to as ley lines now. And this is how the energy was transmitted to all the different sacred sites around the world. And this was part of the technology of Atlantis. So the Templars were trying to find these things to bring back to Europe originally to try to create a new Atlantis in Europe, or a new Jerusalem, as it was also referred to as. Yeah. But Europe was too stable, too unstable.
Unstable, yeah.
You know, between all the wars, the religious wars, and everything else that was happening there. So it was all brought over to the Americas with the hopes that a new country could be established, which was the United States of America, to create a new Atlantis, where all people from around the world could come and have the freedoms that were needed to really dive into the mysteries of Thoth, right, and which was the secrets of Atlantis. So we could rebuild this new Atlantis in this new world. Yeah. I don't want to say New World Order. That sounds bad. You know what I mean? That's not what I'm talking about. Yeah. But you know, a new world framework where we could all work together and you know, revive that civilization.
Right.
So that was the mission of the Templars, and it still continues to be the mission to this day.
You can see a lot of that encoded wisdom in the structures built throughout, for example, Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Right? You can see that in the obelisk that we have there, of course. And at the Library of Congress, I remember visiting the Library of Congress, and there's a giant door there, and there's Thoth etched into the door to go into the Library of Congress.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's the wisdom, you know. That's the wisdom of preservation there. I mean, you find that in other cities too. You know, I'm from Denver. You know, Denver, the downtown is set up completely based on these principles, and where the original Grand Lodge of Freemasonry used to be. It's in a new area now down in Colorado Springs, but in Denver there's a giant obelisk clock tower that was the original Grand Lodge building, and to this day still over the doors you see an image of Hermes, you know, who of course was Thoth, you know, so
you can see the effect even in modern society, modern civilization today, of this this character who seems to just go through time.
Yeah.
You know, he said that he would walk amongst men, but unlike a man, that he had the ability to rejuvenate bodies.
Right.
And to transfer his consciousness from one body to another. And so some of these things sound so mystical and out there, but when we look at modern science, we look at the Avatar project with DARPA. They have been able to transfer a human's mind into a field robot, Conscious Link.
Yeah.
2045.com. Ray Kurzweil's in charge of that, I believe, where that's his project, and where they transferred a monkey's consciousness into a computer. And then the next step was to a robot, which is a human being to a robot, which they've done. And now by 2045 is to be able to transfer the mind into another body.
Yeah.
I mean, so all this stuff is coming to fruition now. I mean, you talk about the alchemy earlier, about converting, you know, alchemically converting metals into gold.
Yeah.
They just did that about 4 years ago in modern science in a real laboratory. Now, it's a very expensive process to create one tiny nugget. But I'm pretty sure in the future that will be reduced in some way. Just like creating antimatter is extremely expensive, but they'll find a way to make it more profitable and make the price go down for production. But they can now alchemically convert base metals into gold.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the science is there. It's doable. Even this idea of being able to move the consciousness of a human into a robot or something. Some believe that that's really what some of these so-called gray aliens are. You know, they're just automaton robots that have consciousness, you know, projected into them from elsewhere.
Right.
You know, to try to, you know, it makes sense if you wanted to travel to some other part of the galaxy, you'd probably send a drone, right? I mean, that's really all a robot is it's a drone. And if you're able to project your consciousness into it, then you could still go and interact and see and do everything without actually, you know, physically hurting your body. You know? So,
and the mind, the speed of thought is faster than the speed of light.
Yeah.
So the consciousness link bypasses the speed of light through something called quantum entanglement.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, again, also ties in this idea that we're all one consciousness, too. We're living in the Emerald Tablet, it says that all things were created through the meditation of the One, within the mind of the One.
Yeah.
What's being implied there is, regardless of what you want to call God, or Allah, or Yahweh, or the great architect, whatever you want to call him, doesn't matter the name. Yeah. But the idea is, if that being, let's say that being is all that is, the only way it's going to be able to create, because there's nothing outside of itself to create with.
Right.
The only way it's going to be able to create is within its own mind, right? Yeah. Thus implying that we are living in the mind of the Creator.
Correct.
Right? And if we're living in the mind of the Creator, we are all a part of that mind.
Yeah.
And this is what Thoth was trying to say. And that, it's kind of matrixy to think about it. This all seems like real, or, hard, whatever matter to us, but it would be the mind stuff of the Creator. And this is what, modern physicists of the 20th century, like Heisenberg and Maxwell Planck and others, they were all saying the more they looked at the subatomic particles that make up reality, the more they had to acknowledge that we seem to be living in a mind. That all energy is just the mind stuff of a creator.
Yeah.
And since we're part of that mind, we are
we're a fractal of God.
We're a fractal of God, exactly. There's a medieval text called Parzival, which is one of the first Holy Grail stories, right? In which it says the Templars are the guardians of the Holy Grail. But in it, there's a character named Trevisorant the Hermit. Hermit, the word hermit comes from Hermes. Yeah. And Trevisorant means threefold knower. So this character is Hermes Trismegistus,
right,
attributed with the Emerald Tablet, who is Thoth. But in the story, Parzival, when he attains the Holy Grail, Trevisorant the Hermit says to him, Parzival, through your own efforts, you have changed God's law. And what he's saying there is, we are, with our own thoughts and actions, we are co-creators with that universal mind.
Yeah.
We're acting within the universal mind, but we're co-creators with it.
Correct.
Right? And that's a profound statement to make.
Yeah.
Because it means we have the power to change this minefield that we live in.
Yeah.
And in so doing, the Creator learns more about itself.
Correct. Yeah.
And so once you start thinking that way, it changes everything in terms of you're no longer a victim in life, right? You're a co-creator of life. And your thoughts have power for good or for bad to change everything. And so we have to be careful about our thinking and about our interactions with each other. And this is why this naturally leads us to this idea of compassion and love of one another, and working together to build a more incredible potential future for all of us.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's so powerful what you just said, because it's something that I wholeheartedly believe. That God, like you say, Yahweh, Allah, whatever you want to call it, frequency, universe, nature. God is living through all of us subjectively. To gain a perspective on what it's like to be Timothy Hogan, what it's like to be Billy Carson, what it's like to be an atom in this microphone.
That's right.
What is it like to be a rock, a blade of grass? And all that information is being transmitted in real time back to the source consciousness in order for it to experience what is it like in the third dimension. What is it to be here? What is it to experience it from every aspect? And I think this is where the omnipresent and omnipotent concept of God comes from, is that God is inhabiting every corner of the entire known universe.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and that's really, like, from a Masonic perspective, that's the reason why God is represented by an all-seeing eye, with the idea that he's always watching. Of course he's always watching, because it's all within his consciousness.
Exactly. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. Yeah, I mean, in the Gospel of Thomas, it's Jesus says, split a piece of wood and I am there, lift a rock and I am there. I mean, with this idea that universal consciousness is everywhere. He's speaking as the Christos, the universal consciousness.
Right.
So it's it's all there. And the sciences and teachings of Thoth were trying to emphasize that fact.
Yes.
And emphasize ways of utilizing that.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to get back to with our sciences, with our religion, with our moral acting in the world towards each other.
Yeah.
And the more we wake up to that, the more of a paradise we can create of this place.
Exactly. So the mission seems to be, based on the Emerald Tablets writings that I've read and the writings of Thoth, the mission seems to be to bring heaven to earth.
Yes.
In other words, not to wait to die so you can live, but to begin to live now and create the paradise and the golden age right here.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. And that is the New Jerusalem, right? That is the second coming of Christ, right? Because the first coming is Jesus speaking as the Christos, but the second coming is the Christos, or the universal consciousness, being woken within ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Powerful, powerful stuff, man.
Powerful stuff, yeah. And the root of so much.
Yeah. And it's just really just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
The depth of the knowledge. Some say that the Emerald Tablets, and I've seemed to have found this myself, the more that you read them, the more enlightened you become.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Because I believe as you are attuning with that, you're starting to attune more to the source of things. I mean, the Emerald Tablets, they also talk about other things like the dark brotherhoods.
Right.
I mean, and they're always, these are the doubting Thomases. These are the people that are out there who haven't figured out yet that they're so attached to matter and trying to control matter.
Yeah.
That they don't realize matter is just a subset of a much bigger consciousness field, and they, through fear and manipulation and trying to keep people feeling small, that's how they keep them enslaved to matter, and not realizing their potential.
Right.
But those who are devoted to the light and to awakening, like we are, and others, it's our duty to remind people who they really are and where they really come from, and what the source really is. And those Emerald Tablets, they are a tool in helping that awakening.
Yeah.
And the Emerald Tablet itself too. I mean, it's not just about doing alchemy to transmute base metals into gold. I mean, that's a cool thing to do,
Right.
but it's really about transforming our consciousness from a lead state or a heavy state of attached to matter to one of liberation and light,
Right.
and more in line with our source.
Right. So like the alchemical conversion of your consciousness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Darkness to light.
Yeah, and once you are able to do that, then once you realize your consciousness is the consciousness of the Creator, then and that everything, we're living in this consciousness field that is all just vibration. I mean, you change the vibration, you're going to change the matter.
Right.
So yeah, you can transmute base metals into gold, but that's like almost like a parlor trick,
Yeah.
for the real, what's really,
Yeah. The big part of the metaphor.
exactly,
Right.
the real gold, which is, being able to realize who you really are and where you really come from,
Yeah.
where you're really going, and what you're really a part of,
Yeah. Yeah.
so much bigger.
So much bigger. It's a beautiful thing. And just a couple more things. With Thoth, one of the reasons why I revere him is because in all the writings I've read about him and his conversations with mankind, he never proclaimed himself to be a god, as far as I've seen.
Yeah. No, he just declared himself to be a master of principles,
Right.
Within the God consciousness.
Right, exactly. And he seemed to call himself a son of Atlantis, kind of like how Jesus calls himself a son of man.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty interesting correlation there as well.
Yep.
Never proclaims to be the creator of everything.
No, just a master of understanding it.
Yeah, just a matter of, which is just incredible, because to me it shows like, hey, I'm really here to help you.
Yeah.
And to bring you to my level.
Yeah, that's right.
And he tries to teach mankind the different levels that he can actually achieve and get to through utilizing his teachings.
Yeah, that's right. And he is referred to, for example, he's referred to as master of the word, right? Well, what's a word? Word is what's used to define things, and as we define things, we're describing our relationship to them.
Yeah.
But when you look at even in Gospel of John, in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. When we connect that with what Thoth is saying, when he's the master of the Word, he's saying, "Look, I'm a master of this vibrational field that was at the beginning and is connected to the consciousness of God, and if you follow my teachings or my way, you can be master of that too."
Right.
Even Jesus said that. He said, "Verily, verily, I say unto you, these miracles you see me perform, you shall do also, and those even greater than these."
That's right.
Well, the only way you can do that is by being a master of the Word, like Thoth talks about.
Exactly.
So
Becoming a master.
it's all connected there.
Yeah, it's all connected.
And it's all about our potential. It's not one of the things that the Templars, when they viewed Jesus, they viewed him as the great exemplar, not necessarily as a savior, right? But as a great exemplar. Because if you can embody that universal consciousness like he did, then that's what saves you.
Yeah.
But it's through your own actions. It's not like you do the crime, Jesus does the time, like most people believe. If you just believe in him, you'll be fine. But from a Templar perspective, it's like, no, you have to come to be like him, an embodiment of that universal consciousness.
Yeah, he's like the template.
He's the template, and that's why the Templars, their full name was the Poor Knights of Christ of the Temple of Solomon. In other words, they weren't the poor knights of Jesus. They're the poor knights of Christ, the Christos, the universal consciousness. And that universal consciousness, which is what Thoth was tapping into, and what Jesus was tapping into, and what others were tapping into, that's what we need to tap into. When we do that, we become like Thoth.
Right, exactly.
We become like Jesus. We become like Muhammad. We become, peace be upon him.
Right.
We become like Moses, So this is fundamental to who we are and who we're becoming.
Right, absolutely. It just seems like these are the base teachings of most religions around the entire planet.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the very
absolutely
root teachings. You can see that where mankind's interjection into some of these teachings had gone astray by adding a little too much influence to the words for the power, purpose, control, and domination. But when you get back to the core teachings, it's about really becoming enlightened and awakened and being born again in the spirit.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And even the temples that are built around the world, all of these temples are they're aligned with star systems, and most of them the same star systems. Orion being one, the Pleiades being another, but the reason why in fact, the word temple comes from templum, which means time, and time was based on the movement of stars, right, and our relative position to stars. So, but what they were creating was an as above, so below relationship, which comes again from this idea that Thoth was emphasizing,
right?
Even like you go to Tulum down in Mexico, those Mayan temples are all aligned with the Pleiades. Whereas the pyramids of Egypt, at least the Giza Plateau, is aligned with the stars of Orion's belt, as Robert Bauval was able to demonstrate. But you find this all over the world with all these temples, and it seems to suggest our relationship on Earth to the heavens. The Templars, when they built the cathedrals of southern France, all the cathedrals of Notre Dame, from Notre Dame of Paris to Chartres to Amiens, and those were all aligned to the constellation of Virgo, which was Our Lady, right? Hence why they were called Notre Dame. But again, it was all about this as above, so below relationship that Thoth emphasized. So, we owe a lot to the Hermetic teachings and to which all go back to Thoth and those Egyptian preservation of Thoth's teachings, which were said to go back to Atlantis.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a powerful talk today, man. You're a wealth of knowledge and wisdom. You're like a walking library.
Well, so are you. So it makes for a great conversation.
I appreciate it. It's always good to have other people come in and let them speak on these topics, so that it's not only my voice, but other voices from people that have knowledge and different perspectives on everything. Yeah, which is incredible. So thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Billy. I'd love to do it anytime you want to do it.
Great. Beautiful, man. All right, guys. So that's Timothy Hogan. Okay, so we'll leave all the links and information about Timothy Hogan in the description. And so, Timothy, I have a very special gift for you today. It's one of our forbidden esoteric watches from our esoteric line.
No way.
Okay, so it's a Tanu design watch, which is pretty popular right now thanks to Richard Mills. So Tanu design, very ancient design, and it's a handmade watch and esoteric on the inside, so that you can continue to seek esoteric knowledge.
I will wear this always. Thank you. This means so much to me. I don't normally wear a watch. I've been waiting to find the right one, and you just gave it to me.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. This means so much to me. Thank you.
Watch this video for free at www.4bk.tv or download the app on your smartphone, Fire Stick app, Samsung TV, Roku, and other app providers.